Hello, I'm Desmond P. Ryan, the author of the Mike O'Shea Crime Fiction series and the Mary Margaret Cozy series, and you're listening to the Dark and Stormy Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to episode 224 of Dark and Stormy Book Club. Today, it's what we're reading. Enjoy.
I'm Ann Dart.
I'm Tracy Stormy.
And I'm Kathy Knight.
And together we are
It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club,
a podcast for mystery lovers.
Welcome.
If you enjoy our show, please consider contributing to the Dark and Stormy Patreon. By becoming a patron, you will help us create better and quality content. There are also benefits to becoming a patron, such as exclusive content and Dark and Stormy merchandise. Become a supporter at patreon.com/darkandstormybc. Check our website for the link. We appreciate any and all contributions. Thank you.
My first book is The Agathas. It is by Kathleen Glasgow and Liz Lawson, and it came out May 3rd of 2022 from Delacorte Press. Now, this is a very sophisticated, I would say, young adult book. Last summer, Alice Ogilve's basketball star boyfriend Steve dumped her. Then she disappeared for 5 days. Where she went and what happened to her is the biggest mystery in Castle Cove, because she's not talking. Or it was, at least. But now, another one of Steve's girlfriends has vanished. Brooke Donovan, Alice's ex-best friend. And it doesn't look like she'll be coming back. Enter Iris Adams. She is a girl in the school with Alice. As in a lot of schools, there's the popular kids, and then there's the regular kids. Well, of course, Alice and Steve and that whole group were all the popular jocks, shall we say.
Okay.
And then there was the other group, and then there was Iris, who was kind of an outsider. She didn't really socialize with either group, because she was, I guess you'd call her, she's not really a goth, but she was just different. But she was very, very smart. And she became Alice's tutor. The school assigned Iris to help Alice because her grades were slipping.
Okay.
Iris has her own reasons for wanting to disappear, though she doesn't have the money Alice has, and she doesn't have the means. That could be changed by a hefty reward that Brooke's grandmother is offering to anyone who can share information about her granddaughter's disappearance. Now, Brooke was one of the popular girls. She and Alice used to be very close. When Steve dumped Alice, he went with Brooke. And then Brooke disappeared, and everyone is looking for her. But then everybody remembers that Alice disappeared for 5 days. Maybe Brooke did the same thing Alice did. Maybe she just ran away to get attention when she came back. Now, in order to get the reward, they have to find out exactly where Brooke is and what happened to her. She and Alice team up because Alice really still cares for Steve, and she wants to prove Steve's innocence. And Alice is the daughter of I guess he's like a Steven Spielberg.
Okay.
He's always off making a movie. And her mother is always at the plastic surgeon or someplace getting
So
beautified.
typical Hollywood.
Typical Hollywood. So poor Alice is basically being raised by her maid. The maid is really the only one who cares for her. So Alice can get away with a lot of things. So she and Iris, they start out a little awkward together. But one thing about Alice is she has always been a complete fan of Agatha Christie.
Well, then I like her already.
I do too. And she has the complete works of Agatha Christie. And if there's anybody who can teach these two girls how to solve a murder, it's Agatha Christie. But the town of Castle Cove has many secrets, and Alice and Iris have no idea how much danger they're in. This is an excellent start to a series that I really will enjoy reading. It was a young adult, so it was cut back a little bit on certain things, but it was very interesting. The characters are very well written. The descriptions of the teenage behavior is all too real. The populars are called the mains in this school. They're the main group. And then there are the zones, which are more traditional students trying to figure out how they figure in life, like most teenagers. They just don't have a clue yet. Some of the things they got into, I really laughed out loud. Iris had to overcome a lot of stigma, and her big dream is to get out of this town. And she figures if they get the reward for discovering what happened to Brooke, then she'll have the money that she and her mother can get away. Her mother she's a hardworking woman. She works in a bar. They are being stalked by Iris's father. He and her mother were never married, but he is a loser and an abuser, and he doesn't want to let go. Iris doesn't understand about the Agatha Christie because Alice says, well, Agatha would do this. And Iris goes, why? It was very, some of the parts you laugh out loud. But the two develop this crazy bond, and it really makes for a really good mystery/thriller. And Agatha Christie is in there in spirit. And really, I can't wait for book number 2. Because it was.
I mean, I'm telling you, these young adult books are just really up in their game and really skate along the line of, an adult could enjoy it too.
Yes. Kathleen Glasgow is the author, and she is a New York Times best-selling author, and she lives in Tucson, Arizona. And her website is KathleenGlasgowBooks.com. Liz Lawson is the author of one book. She lives in Washington, D.C. with her family, and her website is LizLawsonAuthor.com.
My book is called The Woman in the Library by Solari Gentile. It just came out June 7th of this year. And I'm telling you, don't walk, run, and get this book. I can honestly say this is one of the best books I have read in years. I'm sorry to my other authors, but this one just really stuck with me, and it is such a good book. The ornate reading room at the Boston Public Library is quiet until the tranquility is shattered by a woman's terrified scream. Security guards take charge immediately, instructing everyone inside to stay put until the threat is identified and contained. While they wait for an all clear, 4 strangers who'd happen to be at the same table pass the time in conversation and friendships are struck. Each has his or her own reasons for being in the reading room that morning. It just happens that one of them is a murderer.
Ooh.
Oh my goodness. First of all, I don't know if you've seen it, but you've heard of the movie Inception.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. This book kind of reminds me of that because it's a story in a story in a story.
Wow.
What I mean by that is Hannah Tigone is from Australia. She's an established author and she is writing a book. She's writing a mystery. And the 4 friends that I just talked about that this book is about is the book that she's writing. So all these people are fiction.
Okay.
Hannah never speaks in the book. We never hear from Hannah, but we get to see what she writes. But this is where it gets very clever, and I loved it. There's a guy named Leo that lives here in the United States in Boston. And he's kind of an uber fan of Hannah's. And he has agreed to be her critical eye when it comes to the book. So she emails him each chapter and he gives little tips like how to sound a little more American because this book takes place in Boston. And the reason I think that is so clever is because he pointed out things that maybe you might have breezed over, but then he notices it. So he says, oh my goodness, I loved what you did with this chapter. You put the 4 friends in a situation, and then you're like, oh yeah. Like I said, he's constantly pointing out things that will help her in the long run. But there's a problem with Mr. Leo. Each time he emails, at first it's very, very nice. But then the emails get a little strange. And you start to wonder, what's up with this Leo? So now we're going to go on to the next story. And the next story is the one that Hannah is writing. The main character in this one is Winifred. They call her Freddie. And she happens to be at the Boston Public Library researching stuff for her book. There's 4 people in this research room, and they all have a different reason for being there. And that gets the ball rolling. Well, the woman who was murdered is named Caroline Palfrey. And she has a connection to each one of these people. It was very Christie-esque, the way they brought it all together. And I tell you right now, I did not see the ending coming. I was shocked. And where the other story comes in is the story that Winifred is writing, and she includes all the 4 people she just met in the library. She didn't know she was going to strike up a friendship with these people, so before she learned their name as Handsome Man, one was Freud Girl, and one was Harvard Boy or something like that. That was their names in the book. In some ways, it was confusing, but not confusing to the story itself. The story flowed very well. You kind of get lost in what part of the story you're in, but it moved. You knew exactly where you were going. And oh my goodness. I listened to the audiobook. I listened to it twice because I loved it so much, and I also wanted to see what I missed from the first pass. And it was such an enjoyable ride. I will tell you this. One of the 4 people is not who they say they are. I don't want to tell you who because you have to find out for yourself.
Now, was this story told from different points of view?
No, it was pretty much Winifred's story.
Winifred is writing a story. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Hannah Tigone is the original author.
Hannah is writing a story. About,
Winifred and these 3 other people.
okay. As she's writing, she's sending parts of her story
To Leo.
to Leo, who's editing.
He's kind of a fan and he's just giving suggestions. Because she's an established author. She's been published and people love her. And he's just signed on to be a critical eye. And I'll tell you one of the things he does, and this is when it kind of went off the rails for me. When he's writing suggestions for her, and these are all in emails, so he's not talking to her on the phone. He said, well, I noticed when you're describing the murder scene, I think you could have done a better job. Here's some scenes of some people that were bludgeoned to death. Because I came upon a murder scene here in Boston. And that's when I was like, okay. Leo is not who we think he is. And when she first started this book, she liked Leo so much that she included him in her story. She made Leo a neighbor of Winifred's.
So he's one of these 4 people.
No, he's not. He's just a neighbor of Winifred's. At first, he's like, oh, thank you for including me. And she actually did try to help him. She was trying to hook him up with the publisher because he wasn't a published author yet.
Okay.
It's just very clever and probably one of the most clever books I've read in a long time. So
Very good.
definitely check this one out.
Wow. Sounds like a good one.
I'm telling you, read it.
When I get a half a minute, we're going back to one of my favorites. Kathy made the remark that part of my thing was I picked my favorites and report on them. And guess what? She's right. I got another one. And it's one we've done before. Good old Lee Goldberg is back with another Eve Ronan mystery. And this is a good one. It's called Movie Land. And it's by Lee, and it is published by Thomas and Mercer. And it came out June 21st. So it's a fairly recent book also. Malibu Creek State Park is a beautiful locale for campers, tourists, hikers, and Hollywood. For Detective Eve Rogan, it's a backdrop for murder in a riveting thriller by best-selling author Lee Goldberg. For decades, Malibu Creek State Park was the spectacular natural setting where Hollywood fantasies were made. But when a female camper is gunned down, it becomes a real-life killing ground. Los Angeles County Department homicide detectives Eve Ronan and her partner Duncan Pavone are assigned to the case, which Duncan fears is the latest in a series of sniper attacks that began long before Eve came to Lost Hills. There have been 7 victims over 14 months, and the top officials refuse to see any connection. But Eve and Duncan are stonewalled. They're told by their superiors to forget it, just walk away. It's not anything you need to investigate. It's nothing that involves us. But you know Eve, she's gonna start digging around. And Duncan, in the first mystery, which was called Lost Hills, she and Duncan were paired up. She was brand new to the force, and he was getting ready to retire. And in the second book, he was still getting ready to retire. Well, in this one, he's in his last week. The series of events happen fairly regularly. Even Duncan have to follow their instincts into Malibu Creek. It's not enough to expose the secrets and break the conspiracy of silence that the police have. They also have to make it out alive. she was new in the first one. And the other sheriffs in the sheriff's department are very jealous of her because now she's got a television show based on her
Ah.
being programmed. So she has to run through a lot of things with her publicist and her director and even the person who's going to play her in the program. She became a sheriff. She was pushed up and promoted.
So she's rising up too fast and they're
She
jealous.
is going up way too fast because in the first one, she tackled a prominent movie star who was beating up his girlfriend. And she went after him and she tackled him. And that's what brought her to the attention.
Yeah, I remember that.
Everybody was in the news. Well, there's a group of sheriffs that really want to take her down. And it's very, very well done. You can picture what's going on at the way Lee writes it. He's so talented.
He's good at including, it's like an underlying bit of humor in the...
Oh, definitely. But his descriptions are excellent. Like,
well, he's from Hollywood.
right. But, I mean, this park. I would put, we went down a path. He goes, the gritty sand under our feet is, the little minutia that you or I wouldn't think to put in a story is excellent. The themes in this book are justice, breaking rules, corruption, egos of people, assaults, murder, and integrity. Overall, it's gritty. It was one of those that it was very tense. You sat hunched over and feeling tight. It's got action. It's got twists. Oh my goodness. And there's some violence. It's very fast paced and action packed. If you enjoy good crime thrillers and police procedurals, then run and get this book. Read the whole series, but this book was excellent too. It really should be read in order because you follow Eve's progression.
And you'll have to go back and listen to our interview
with Lee.
It was very funny and very entertaining.
Yes. Lee was on episode 99. And I am really, really looking forward to the next one. Eve is one of my favorite characters, and Lee is one of my favorite authors. And keep them coming, Lee. And we'll be out to get in that hot tub.
Thank you for listening to another episode of What We're Reading. We really enjoy doing these because we get to read whatever we want.
Exactly.
And our podcast is going to be a little different for just a little while. We've got some things going on in our personal lives that require our attention. So I need you to be patient with us, but we promise we'll do our best to try to get new episodes out to you. And we hope you are enjoying your summer and reading lots of wonderful beach reads and summer reads and all that good stuff.
We'll see you next week. And remember,
life would be boring without a little mystery.
Bye.